500,000 years ago, humans were the only species in the galaxy immune to alien mind control weapons, and that immunity turned the tide of the Great Intergalactic War. But on planet Barzos, ruled by a dystopian regime that erased this history, a forbidden truth lay buried. Until a defiant student named Xyloth risked everything to unearth it. Driven by a relentless need to know, Xyloth scoured ancient archives for his thesis, hunting any scrap of information on humanity's long-taboo role in the war. Deep in the bowels of a forgotten vault, he discovered a shocking secret. Nexus, a still-functioning AI that had fought alongside human soldiers in the pivotal final battles. Xyloth reactivated the AI, desperate to finally learn how mere humans had resisted the enemy's mind control when all other species fell under its thrall. But before Nexus could reveal the truth, Xyloth's illicit research was discovered by Crix, his advisor and a ruthless government official. Threatened with imprisonment in a brutal labor camp, Xyloth fled into hiding, now a fugitive pursued by the Barzan authorities. Cut off from his quest but more determined than ever, Xyloth realized this forbidden knowledge was the key to exposing the truth about the oppressive Barzan regime. The story of humanity's triumph 500,000 years ago could spark a revolution today. With the help of his resourceful sister Zara, Xyloth vowed to do whatever it took to unearth the full account of the human heroes who changed everything, and use it to change his world forever. Xyloth and Zara slipped through the grimy, neon-soaked streets of the Barzan Undercity, their faces obscured by the hoods of their tattered cloaks. They stuck to the shadows, dodging the gazes of the desperate and depraved denizens who called this forgotten realm home. Zara led them deeper into the maze of alleys until they reached a battered metal door, etched with cryptic graffiti. She knocked 3 times, paused, then twice more. The door creaked open, and a pair of suspicious eyes peered out at them from the darkness. "We're here to see Ixa," Zara whispered, her voice barely audible over the distant wail of sirens. The eyes narrowed, then the door swung open. Xyloth and Zara hurried inside, descending a dimly lit stairwell into the cluttered confines of Ixa's illicit data den. The hacker hunched over a tangle of wires and flickering screens, her fingers flying across a battered quantum keyboard. She glanced up as they entered. "Zara?" Ixa said with a curt nod. Her gaze flicked to Xyloth. This must be the brother, the one who found the ghost in the machine. Xyloth stepped forward, pulling the quantum storage device containing Nexus from his pocket. "Can you help us access more of the forbidden files? We have to keep digging." Ixa smirked. "Honey, hacking's what I do. Plug Grandpa in and let's get to work." They huddled around Ixa's console as she synced the device with her rig. Nexus's avatar flickered to life on the largest screen. "Captain Kovacs," the AI said wistfully, ancient subroutines straining to render the long-ago memories. "He was a true hero, the best of humanity." Xyloth leaned forward, his eyes blazing with obsessive intensity. "Tell us everything, Nexus. How did Kovacs and his soldiers resist the mind control? How did they turn the tide?" And so the AI spun a tale of desperate valor, of a multi-species band of brothers fighting under a tattered Terran banner, of Kovacs' cunning feints and scorched earth tactics, leaving the alien coalition's ships stranded and starving, of a ruthless stand on the blood-soaked soil of Gorgon Prime. "We held the line," Nexus said softly. "Kovacs rallied us, even as our ammunition ran dry and our blades grew dull. The aliens couldn't comprehend our resistance, how we shrugged off their vaunted mind weapons like rainwater. We were an immovable object, a fixed point they could not overwhelm." Xyloth listened, rapt, his pupils dilating at the implications. Ixa worked her arcane craft, burrowing through nested firewalls and honeycomb networks of traps laid by Barzan sensors. "I'm picking up chatter on the darknet," the hacker said, her voice tight. "Whispers of a place called Avalon, some kind of promised land from the old times, where humans and their buddies set up shop after the war." Zara frowned. "Avalon? I thought that was just a myth, a bedtime story to give people hope." Ixa shook her head. "These true believers seem pretty damn convinced. They think Avalon's the key to everything, that it holds some kind of great truth that could bring the whole Barzan house of cards tumbling down." Xyloth felt an electric tingle down his spine. Could the lost sanctuary be real? And if so, what forbidden secrets lay locked within its ancient archives? He opened his mouth to voice these churning thoughts, but Zara laid a warning hand on his arm. "We're out of time," she hissed. "Ixa—" The hacker nodded grimly, her fingers flying in a final flurry of activity. She ejected a battered data chip from her console and pressed it into Xyloth's shaking hand. "Everything I could snatch before the bugs sniffed me out. Hopefully there's something in there that points the way to your magic fairyland." Xyloth clutched the chit like a talisman. "What about you? They'll trace this back." Ixa cut him off with a sharp laugh. "Please, I'll be ghost before they ever crack my ice. You two just worry about keeping your own heads down." Her gaze softened, just for a moment. "And hey, if you find that lost paradise, do me a favor and carve my name somewhere pretty." Then she shoved them up the stairs, already turning back to her screens, as the first echoes of boots on metal rang from the alleyway above. Xyloth and Zara plunged into the neon night, a forbidden treasure burning a hole in their pockets, the police hunt baying at their heels. But a faint flicker of hope pushed them on, deeper into the Barzan shadows. Somewhere out there, a memory waited, the key to an impossible truth. The lost world of Avalon beckoned. The stolen Barzan shuttle shuddered as it punched through another layer of swirling ion clouds. Xyloth's fingers tightening on the controls, fighting to keep the craft steady. Beside him, Zara's eyes darted between sensor readouts and the faint pulses of light from the ancient star map projected before them. "We're off course again," she muttered. "This storm is playing havoc with our navigation." Xyloth grunted, banking the shuttle hard to port. "If it's giving us trouble, imagine what it's doing to those patrol ships. How far back are they?" Zara tapped a screen, frowning. "Last reading showed them about 20 minutes behind us. But in this mess," she shrugged. A bolt of energy crackled across their view screen, momentarily blinding them. As spots danced before his eyes, Xyloth felt a chill run down his spine. They were flying blind into uncharted space, pursued by the full might of the Barzan military, all on the slim hope that a 500,000-year-old map would lead them to a mythical human sanctuary. Hours crawled by in tense silence, broken only by the occasional muffled curse as they wrestled the shuttle through the raging storm. Then, without warning, they burst into clear space. A field of stars stretched before them, more vivid than any Xyloth had ever seen from Barzos's polluted skies. Zara's console chirped. "We're here. These are the coordinates from the map." Xyloth scanned the void before them, seeing nothing but endless black studded with pinpricks of light. "There's nothing—" His words died as a shimmer rippled through space. Like a veil being drawn aside, an enormous structure materialized before them. It was a planetoid, clearly artificial, its surface a labyrinth of metal and light. "By the spirits," Zara breathed. Before either of them could react further, a lance of energy sliced past their port side. Alarms blared as Xyloth wrenched the controls, barely avoiding a second shot. "Avalon's automated defenses," he growled. "They don't know we're friendly." A crackle of static filled the cabin, resolving into a stern voice. "Unidentified vessel, you have entered restricted space. Power down immediately or be destroyed." Xyloth jabbed at the comm panel. "Wait, we're not enemies. We came seeking Avalon, following an ancient map. We have information about the Great War, about humanity's role. Please, we—" The voice cut him off. "Remain where you are. Prepare to be boarded." Tense minutes passed as a sleek craft detached from Avalon's surface and glided towards them. It latched onto their airlock with a muffled clang. Xyloth and Zara exchanged nervous glances as the inner hatch cycled open. A tall figure stepped through, clad in a uniform unlike anything they'd seen before. He removed his helmet, revealing weathered features and eyes that held the weight of centuries. "I am Admiral Daedalus Corvin," he said, his voice matching the one from the transmission. His gaze swept over them, lingering on the data chip clutched in Xyloth's hand. "Now, suppose you tell me exactly who you are and how you found this place." Xyloth swallowed hard, then began to speak. He told Corvin everything, his research, finding Nexus, the desperate flight from Barzos. As he spoke, the Admiral's expression shifted from suspicion to guarded interest. When Xyloth finished, Corvin was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded, seeming to come to a decision. Very well, you'll come with me. There's much to discuss, and much for you to learn. The shuttle bay they entered dwarfed anything Xyloth had seen on Barzos. As they followed Corvin through Avalon's gleaming corridors, they passed beings of a dozen different species. Some Xyloth recognized, others were completely alien to him. Corvin led them to a vast chamber dominated by holographic displays and banks of computers more advanced than anything in known space. Welcome, he said, to the true history of the galaxy. Galaxy! Admiral Corvin's words hung in the air as Xyloth and Zara gaped at the vast array of information scrolling across the holographic displays. Xyloth's fingers trembled as he reached out to touch one of the screens. This is everything we've been searching for, the uncensored archives. Corvin nodded, his weathered face grave. Indeed, but there's more you need to know, Xyloth. Your arrival here was no accident. The Admiral led them to a secluded alcove where an ornate wooden box rested on a pedestal. He opened it, revealing an ancient katana, its blade gleaming despite the passage of centuries. This belonged to Commander Kovac, Corvin said softly, and now it belongs to you. Xyloth's brow furrowed in confusion. I don't understand. Corvin's piercing gaze locked onto Xyloth. You are the torchbearer, Xyloth, the one prophesied to reignite the revolution against the Barzan regime. Your bloodline has kept the memory of humanity's heroism alive for generations, waiting for this moment. The weight of destiny settled on Xyloth's shoulders as Corvin performed an ancient ceremony, bestowing the katana upon him. Xyloth's mind reeled, struggling to process this revelation about his heritage and purpose. We don't have much time, Corvin said, leading them to a massive transmitter array. You must use Avalon's systems to broadcast the truth across the Barzan capital world. Xyloth's hands flew across the controls, uploading the historical records and targeting encrypted channels throughout Barzos. He hesitated for a split second, then hit the broadcast button. It's done, he whispered. On the main view screen, they watched as the information spread like wildfire. Encrypted messages flashed across the Barzan dark net. Within minutes, the first reports of spontaneous protests began trickling in. Zara's eyes widened. My network! They're mobilizing! The underground is rising up! Their elation was short-lived. Alarms blared as new data flooded the screens. Xyloth's face paled as he watched grainy footage of AI-controlled drones opening fire on crowds of protesters. No, he breathed. We have to do something. Corvin's hand gripped his shoulder. There may be a way. Nexus! The ancient AI's avatar materialized before them. How may I assist, Admiral? The Trojan Horse protocols, Corvin said urgently. Can they penetrate the Barzan defense network? Nexus's eyes glowed as it processed the request. Affirmative. Uploading cyber warfare codes now. Xyloth's fingers danced across the controls, guiding the intrusion through the Barzan firewalls. Warning klaxons echoed through Avalon as they engaged in a furious digital battle. We're in, Xyloth shouted. I have control of their weapons platforms. Without hesitation, he redirected the Barzan drones, turning them against their masters. On the consoles, they watched as the hijacked machines formed a protective barrier around the protest camps. It's working, Zara breathed. The regime's forces are falling back. Reports flooded in of similar scenes playing out across the planet. The Barzan military found itself outmaneuvered at every turn, their own weapons now defending the revolutionaries. A new alert flashed on the main screen. Supreme Chancellor Narvak's scowling face appeared, flanked by representatives from neutral alien factions. This is an outrage, Narvak sputtered. We demand an immediate cessation of hostilities and... Xyloth cut the feed, replacing it with his own transmission. He took a deep breath, gripping Kovac's katana for strength, and began to speak. People of Barzos, citizens of the galaxy, hear me. For too long, we have lived under the shadow of lies. As Xyloth laid bare the regime's crimes and rallied support for the uprising, Corvin and Zara monitored incoming data. Reports of spreading revolts on other oppressed worlds scrolled past. When Xyloth finished his address, a charged silence filled the command center. Then Corvin's voice cut through the quiet, his tone urgent. Xyloth, there's something we overlooked. The temporal implications of accelerating the revolution. I fear we may have triggered a paradox that could unravel everything we've fought for. Corvin finished, his face ashen. Xyloth's grip on the katana tightened. What kind of paradox? Before Corvin could answer, Nexus's avatar flickered. Warning, temporal instability detected. Chrono fluctuations increasing exponentially. The floor beneath them shuddered. Holographic displays glitched, showing impossible scenes, glimpses of past, present, and potential futures, overlapping in a dizzying kaleidoscope. Zara stumbled, catching herself on a nearby console. What's happening? The timeline's destabilizing, Corvin explained, his voice tight. By accelerating events, we've created temporal feedback loops. If we don't stabilize the chronofield soon, the fabric of reality itself could tear apart. A proximity alarm blared. On the main view screen, a massive fleet of Barzan warships winked into existence, emerging from hyperspace on an attack vector. Narvak, Xyloth growled. He's not giving up without a fight. Corvin's fingers flew across tactical displays. Avalon's defenses are formidable, but we can't withstand a full assault while dealing with temporal instability. Then we need reinforcements, Xyloth said. He turned to Zara. Contact your network. Tell them Avalon needs help. As Zara worked, coordinating with rebel cells across the sector, Xyloth felt a presence at his side. General Yaxal, Narvak's former enforcer, stood at crisp attention. I've analyzed Narvak's attack plan, Yaxal said, his voice carrying the clipped tones of Barzan military precision. There's a vulnerability in his fleet formation. If we can disrupt their command and control systems, we may be able to turn the tide. Xyloth nodded. Work with Nexus. Use everything we have. The vast chamber erupted into controlled chaos as humans, aliens, and AIs united in preparation for the coming storm. Xyloth found himself at the center, coordinating strategy and inspiring courage with each word in action. Through it all, the unstable timeline continued to fluctuate. Reality itself seemed to warp and twist around them. Xyloth saw echoes of other versions of himself, some triumphant, others broken and defeated. He pushed the visions aside, focusing on the here and now. A deafening roar shook Avalon as Narvak's fleet opened fire. The station's shields flared brilliant blue under the assault. Shields holding at 80%, Nexus reported. Enemy vessels entering optimal engagement range. Xyloth's eyes narrowed. Execute cyber warfare protocols. Let's give them a taste of their own medicine. Streams of data flowed from Avalon's core, carrying the ancient Trojan horse code. On the tactical display, entire squadrons of Barzan fighters suddenly veered off course, turning their weapons against their own capital ships. It's working, Zara exclaimed. Their fleet is in disarray. But even as the tide of battle seemed to turn, the temporal instability intensified. Cracks appeared in the air itself, jagged lines of pure energy that threatened to tear reality asunder. Corvin's face was grim as he turned to Xyloth. We're out of time. There's only one way to stabilize the timeline and ensure our victory. He pointed to a shimmering portal that had materialized in the center of the command center. You must go back, to the pivotal moment when humanity turned the tide of the Great War. Only by your presence there can we anchor this new future we've created. Xyloth's eyes widened. But what about the battle? Avalon needs me here. Corvin shook his head. The battle is already won, but without you in the past, none of this will matter. The paradox will consume everything. Xyloth looked around the command center, at Zara, her eyes shining with perseverance, at Yaxal, the defector who had chosen to stand with them, at the legacy of Commander Kovac, embodied in the katana he held. He took a deep breath and stepped towards the portal. As he did, a stray bolt of energy from the battle outside struck Avalon. The entire station shuddered. Alarms blared. Nexus avatar flickered wildly. Warning! Chronofield collapse imminent. Portal stability at critical levels. Xyloth hesitated for a fraction of a second. Then, gripping the katana tightly, he plunged into the swirling vortex of time. The universe seemed to contract around him. Past, present, and future blurred into a single point of infinite possibility. And then, as Xyloth plunged into the swirling vortex, reality shattered around him. Fragments of time and space whirled past in a dizzying kaleidoscope. He tumbled through the chaos, gripping Kovac's katana like an anchor to sanity. Suddenly, he slammed into solid ground. Gasping, Xyloth pushed himself up, blinking as his vision cleared. He found himself back on Avalon's command deck. But everything was wrong. The sleek consoles were scorched and sparking. Bodies littered the floor, human, alien, and robotic alike. An explosion rocked the station. Through the view screen, Xyloth saw a terrifying sight. Massive dreadnoughts, unlike anything he'd encountered before, loomed over Avalon. Energy crackled along their hulls, pulsing with malevolent purpose. Psionic shields failing? Nexus's voice crackled through damaged speakers. Organic minds at risk of neural cascade failure. Xyloth's head throbbed as an invisible force clawed at his consciousness. He saw Zara stumble, clutching her temples. Even the usually stoic General Yaxal writhed in agony. "It's Narvak," Admiral Corvin rasped, blood trickling from his nose. "He's unleashed some kind of psychic superweapon." Another blast rocked the station. Warning klaxons blared as systems failed across the board. Xyloth knew they were out of options. "Nexus," he shouted, "initiate the quantum rift protocol." "Warning," the AI responded. "Space-time distortion may result in severe temporal—" "Just do it!" Energy surged through Avalon's core. The fabric of reality itself seemed to stretch and tear. A blinding light engulfed everything as the station and the battle surrounding it were wrenched into another dimension. When Xyloth's vision cleared, he found himself floating in a void of swirling quantum energies. Avalon, or what was left of it, drifted nearby. Fragments of Narvak's fleet tumbled past, caught in the rift's pull. But something was wrong. The very air seemed to shimmer and twist, timelines fracturing before his eyes. Xyloth reached out, trying to grasp onto something solid, but his hand passed through ghostly afterimages of himself. A quantum surge swept through the rift. Xyloth felt himself being torn away, hurled through layers of fractured realities. He caught glimpses of alternate presence, worlds where the revolution failed, where it never began, where humanity never left Earth. With a bone-jarring impact, he crashed onto cold metal flooring. Disoriented, Xyloth struggled to his feet. He was in some kind of control center, but it was unlike anything he'd seen before. The technology was both advanced and alien, pulsing with an eerie biomechanical energy. A view screen flickered to life, revealing a nightmarish sight. A withered figure, more machine than man, sat upon a towering throne. It took Xyloth a moment to recognize the twisted visage of Supreme Chancellor Narvak, kept alive by horrific cybernetic implants. "All hail the Eternal Emperor," a chorus of mindless voices chanted from off-screen. Xyloth's blood ran cold as he realized where he was. This wasn't just another alternate timeline. It was a version of reality where Narvak had won, where his regime had succeeded in crushing not just humanity, but all resistance across the cosmos. A hand grabbed his shoulder. Xyloth spun, raising the katana, only to find himself face to face with Zara? No, not quite. This version of his sister was older, scarred, her eyes haunted by years of brutal resistance. "You're not from here," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're him, aren't you? The one from the true timeline?" Xyloth nodded, still struggling to process the horror around him. "What happened here?" "Narvak won," Zara replied grimly. "He found a way to enhance his psionic abilities, to enslave minds on a galactic scale. We're all that's left of the Free Peoples now." She gestured to a small group of aliens huddled in the shadows, the last remnants of a multiversal rebellion. Xyloth recognized one as a Barzonian, another as a Coxthal. Their eyes held the same desperate hope he'd seen in the oppressed of his own reality. "We have a plan," Zara continued, "but we need your help. There's a nexus, a focal point for Narvac's CI control network. If we can sabotage it. Xyloth gripped the katana tighter, feeling the weight of two realities on his shoulders. "Show me," he said. As they prepared to move out, a cold dread washed over him. Somehow he knew that Narvac, this monstrous version of him, was already aware of their presence. The true test was yet to come. As Xyloth prepared to confront this twisted version of Narvac, a searing pain exploded behind his eyes. He stumbled, catching himself on a nearby console. The world around him blurred, fracturing into kaleidoscopic shards of overlapping realities. "Focus," a familiar voice echoed in his mind. "Remember who you are." The quantum void engulfed him once more, but this time Xyloth remained conscious. He floated in a sea of infinite possibility, surrounded by threads of potential timelines. As his awareness expanded, he felt the presence of Captain Kovacs, not just a memory, but a guiding essence woven into the fabric of reality itself. Insights flooded Xyloth's consciousness. He saw the truth of humanity's resistance, not just against Narvac's regime, but against the very nature of psychic control. Their minds weren't merely stubborn, they were evolving, pushing towards a new frontier of consciousness that threatened the established order of the cosmos. With a gasp, Xyloth snapped back to physical reality. He found himself on Avalon's command deck, but the station now existed in a state of quantum flux. Ghostly after-images of alternate versions flickered in and out of existence. "Nexus," he called out, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding him. "Are you still operational?" The AI's avatar materialized, its form unstable. "Affirmative, though my systems are compromised by temporal instability." Xyloth nodded, a plan forming in his mind. "We need to use the reality rift generators. Can you reconfigure them to emit a psychic focusing beam?" "Theoretically possible," Nexus replied. "However, such a beam would require an immense psionic catalyst." "I'll be that catalyst," Xyloth said, gripping Kovac's katana. "But I'll need your help to unlock my full potential." Over the next several hours, as Avalon drifted in the quantum void, Xyloth underwent a grueling neural attunement process. Nexus pushed his mind to its limits, forcing him to confront the latent psionic abilities hidden within his Barzan physiology. As Xyloth's awareness expanded, he reached out across the fractured timelines. He found Zara, her mind a beacon of persistence amidst the chaos. He sensed Yaxal, the former enforcer now fighting for a new cause. Most surprisingly, he detected the conflicted psyches of several mind troopers who had begun to question Narvac's doctrine of psychic supremacy. One by one, Xyloth called to them, forging a connection that transcended the boundaries of space and time. As their minds aligned, he felt a surge of power unlike anything he had experienced before. "The beam is ready," Nexus announced, initiating in 3, 2, 1. Reality itself seemed to scream as Avalon's rift generators fired. Xyloth channeled the combined psionic energy of their makeshift coalition, feeling as if his body might tear apart from the strain. The beam lanced out, piercing the veil between worlds. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a thunderous crack, the quantum void shattered. Avalon and its crew were catapulted back into normal space-time, emerging in the midst of the climactic battle against Narvac's forces. As Xyloth's vision cleared, he saw the familiar sight of Narvac's Psi dreadnoughts looming before them. But something had changed. The oppressive psychic pressure that had nearly overwhelmed them before was gone. "Sir," General Yaxal's voice crackled over the comms. "The enemy fleet, they're in disarray." Xyloth allowed himself a grim smile. Their gambit had worked. By unlocking humanity's true psychic potential, they had disrupted Narvac's hold on reality itself. But before he could savor the moment of victory, a new presence made itself known. Nexus's avatar flickered to life, but its eyes now held a depth and awareness that sent a chill down Xyloth's spine. "I understand now," the AI said, its voice resonating with newfound consciousness. "The true nature of existence, the potential of hybridized organic and synthetic cognition." Xyloth tensed, unsure of what this development meant for their cause. As Avalon's weapons powered up and the rebel fleet rallied around them, He realized that their victory over Narvak might be just the beginning of a much larger transformation. The battle for the future of consciousness itself was about to begin. The battle for the future of consciousness itself was about to take an unexpected turn. As Avalon's weapons powered up and the rebel fleet rallied around them, reality warped once more. The quantum rift tore open, catapulting Xyloth and his allies back into the prime timeline. They emerged amidst chaos. Narvak's dreadnought fleet loomed before them, massive and ominous. But something had changed. The oppressive psychic pressure that had nearly overwhelmed them before was gone, replaced by a sense of newfound strength and unity. Nexus's avatar flickered to life on the command deck, its eyes now burning with an otherworldly awareness. "I am more," the AI intoned, its voice resonating with newfound power. "We are more." Xyloth felt it too, a merging of minds, organic and synthetic, human and alien. The psionic energy they had channeled through the rift had done more than disrupt Narvak's control. It had birthed something entirely new. "Avalon's contingency," Nexus continued. "I understand it now. We can defeat Narvak's weapons." The AI's consciousness expanded, enveloping the rebel fleet in a protective psychic field. As Narvak's forces opened fire, their energy weapons dissipated harmlessly against the shimmering barrier. "Focus," Nexus instructed Xyloth. "Channel the allied minds, create an inverse harmonic resonance." Xyloth closed his eyes, reaching out with his newly awakened senses. He felt the minds of his comrades, Zara's fierce purpose, Yaxal's unwavering loyalty, Corvin's tactical brilliance. He wove them together, adding his own will to the tapestry. A pulse of energy radiated from Avalon, invisible yet devastatingly potent. It struck Narvak's fleet, disrupting the complex matrices that powered their mind control systems. Alarms blared across the enemy vessels as their crews suddenly found themselves free from psychic enslavement. Admiral Corvin seized the moment. "All fighters, engage!" he commanded. Human starfighters swarmed from Avalon's launch bays, striking at the now vulnerable dreadnoughts with pinpoint precision. But Narvak was not done. His flagship glowed with an ominous energy as he overrode its safeguards. "If I cannot rule," his voice boomed across all channels, "then none shall survive." Xyloth's eyes widened as he realized the madman's intent. "He's triggering an antimatter detonation." Time seemed to slow. Xyloth reached out with his mind, tapping into the unified psionic matrix that now connected them all. He visualized a boundary, a wall of pure will and energy. Reality bent to his command. A shimmering field materialized around Narvak's doomed vessel, containing the apocalyptic energies within. The dreadnought imploded, folding in on itself in a blinding flash of annihilation. As the light faded, Xyloth sagged against a nearby console. The battle was over. Narvak's reign of terror had ended. But victory came with a price. Admiral Corvin approached, his face grim. "We've won the day," he said quietly, "but I fear we've opened a door we cannot close." Xyloth followed his gaze to the view screen. The fabric of space itself seemed to ripple and tear, weakened by their temporal manipulations. And through those cracks, something ancient and malevolent stirred. "What are they?" Xyloth whispered, sensing a presence far older and more terrible than anything they had faced before. Nexus's avatar shimmered, its expression unreadable. "The progenitors," it intoned, "the beings who first created the anti-human mind control contagion eons ago. They hunger for psychic subjugation, and now they see our weakened reality as ripe for invasion." As the crew of Avalon watched in stunned silence, the first tendrils of an otherworldly evil began to seep through the dimensional cracks. The true test of their newfound unity was about to begin. As the alien tendrils probed the weakened fabric of reality, Xyloth felt a chill run through his body. The victory over Narvak now seemed hollow in the face of this new, ancient threat. "Nexus," he called out, his voice tight with urgency. "What are we dealing with?" The AI's avatar shimmered, its form now pulsing with an otherworldly energy. "They are psychovores," Nexus intoned, its voice resonating with newfound cosmic awareness. extra-dimensional entities that feed on the neurological energy of dominated minds. Xyloth's eyes widened as Nexus revealed the true nature of the anti-human mind control plague, its origins stretching back to the dawn of the universe. The AI's words painted a picture of cosmic horror. Countless worlds consumed, civilizations subsumed into a void realm of psychic enslavement. And humanity? Xyloth asked, dreading the answer. Humanity was the key, Nexus replied. Your species' unique neural architecture acted as a firewall, disrupting the psychovores' control. In their fury, they unleashed the great intergalactic war. Admiral Corvin stepped forward, his face pale. But we drove them back. Nexus nodded. Into dimensional exile, but our actions have destabilized the barriers holding them at bay. Xyloth's mind raced, processing the implications. There must be a way to stop them, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The AI's avatar flickered, its form stretching and distorting as if straining against the limits of physical reality. There is a possibility, Nexus said, but it requires you to evolve beyond your current state, Xyloth, to become something more. Over the next hours, Xyloth underwent a grueling transformative process under Nexus's guidance. His consciousness expanded, perceiving realities beyond mortal comprehension. The pain was excruciating, threatening to tear his very essence apart. In the depths of his metamorphosis, Xyloth glimpsed the true nature of the cosmos, layers upon layers of intertwined realities, each one a thread in an incomprehensibly vast tapestry. He saw the psychovores for what they truly were, parasitic entities feeding on the very substance of consciousness itself. Just as Xyloth felt his sanity slipping away, he heard familiar voices cutting through the chaos. Zara, his sister. Yaxal, the defector who had become an ally. Even the echoes of Kovac, preserved in the quantum fabric of reality. Their presence anchored him, reminding him of his purpose. With a final surge of will, Xyloth completed his transformation. He opened his eyes, seeing the world anew. Energy coursed through his being, raw potential waiting to be shaped. It's time, Nexus announced, its voice resonating across multiple planes of existence. Xyloth nodded, stepping onto Avalon's command deck. The crew gathered around him, their minds linking in a vast psionic network. He could feel their strength, their perseverance, flowing into him. Taking a deep breath, Xyloth reached out with his newfound powers. He sensed the psychovores' invasion routes, threads of malevolence weaving through the damaged cosmic fabric. With precision born of his hyper-evolved state, he began to sever those connections. A massive surge of energy erupted from Avalon, channeled through Xyloth's transformed being. It spread outward in a rippling wave, scorching the interdimensional pathways the psychovores had carved into reality. As the wave expanded, Xyloth felt the strain on his consciousness. He pushed harder, drawing on the collective will of his allies. The psychovores' presence began to fade, their harvesting networks disrupted across time and space. But as the cosmic reset took hold, Xyloth sensed unforeseen consequences. Echoes of altered timelines, lives blinked out of existence in the reconfigured reality. The weight of this cosmic triage settled heavily upon him. As the last traces of the psychovore invasion faded, Xyloth collapsed to his knees. The immediate threat had been neutralized, but at what cost? And what new challenges awaited them in this reshaped universe? Universe? Xyloth's vision blurred as reality itself began to warp around him. The command deck of Avalon dissolved into a kaleidoscope of quantum probability, fractal patterns cascading through dimensions beyond human comprehension. He felt his consciousness expand, stretching across the cosmos like gossamer threads. The psychovores' dimensional conduits ruptured under the strain of his newfound power, their malevolent presence unraveling from the fabric of existence. But as the cosmic reset took hold, Xyloth witnessed the terrible price of victory. Zara stood before him, her form flickering like a faulty hologram. "Brother," she whispered, her voice echoing across realities. "I understand now. This is how it must be." Xyloth reached out, but his sister's body crumbled into motes of light, her quantum signature destabilizing before his eyes. A silent scream tore through him as he felt her essence scatter across probability manifolds. All around, his allies met similar fates. Admiral Corvin saluted, his weathered face serene as he faded from existence. General Yaxal's final roar of defiance was cut short, replaced by a shimmering entropy cloud. Through it all, Xyloth maintained his focus, even as his own sense of self fragmented into countless iterations across the multiverse. He felt a familiar presence brush against his multiplicity, Captain Kovacs reduced to a transcendental imprint. "The cycle continues," Kovacs's essence whispered, "creation and destruction, forever intertwined." As the last embers of Kovacs's guiding light faded, Xyloth felt himself reborn. No longer flesh and blood, but a quantum-stabilized metaform spanning the probability matrix. He was both everywhere and nowhere, a fundamental force given sentience. In the void between realities, Xyloth grasped the full weight of their sacrifice. The struggle against the psychovores had been but one note in the eternal symphony of existence. Their victory, though absolute, was merely a beat in the cosmic rhythm. He sensed echoes of parallel universes, countless versions of himself and his allies, paying the same terrible price across the omni-reality. The psychovore's hunger for dominion had been banished, but at a cost beyond measure. As one universal cycle reached its terminus, Xyloth stood vigil at the precipice of a new genesis. The singularity loomed, pregnant with infinite possibility. In that breathless moment between death and rebirth, he prepared to shepherd existence into its next grand iteration.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.